I was walking too fast and trying not to cry. The road curved away from the house, like it was glad to be free of it. Of the yelling. Of the silence afterward. Of me. Dad's words were still ringing in my ears. You don't get to act like an adult when you still live under my roof. I didn't even remember what I'd said to set him off. Maybe it was about school. Or not going back. Or just breathing wrong. I slammed the door behind me and left without a plan, just the need to be anywhere else. The dusk was bleeding into night, and my phone was already dead. I kept walking, gravel crunching under my sneakers, the wind cool on my cheeks. Then I heard it, the low growl of a car engine coming up behind me. I turned, ready to wave it off. But it slowed. An old pickup truck, navy blue, a little rust around the edges. The window rolled down. A man leaned out, maybe late 50s, early 60s. Graying hair, sharp eyes, and a voice that made me stop cold. You're the spitting image of her. I froze. Of who? He smiled. Not creepy. Not soft, either. Like someone remembering something that hurt and felt good at the same time. Your mom, he said. No doubt about it. You've got her mouth. And her fire. My stomach dropped. Do I know you? Name's Mark. Mark Halden. The name hit me like a slap. My dad's voice, years ago, grumbling over dinner. If that bastard ever shows his face again. You're that Mark? I asked, stepping back. The one my dad. Yeah. His voice didn't change. That one. What do you want? Nothing. I was passing through. Saw you walking. Thought you might need a ride. I'm fine. I don't doubt it. He tapped the wheel with his fingers. But it's getting dark. And you don't look like you're dressed for miles. I crossed my arms. You're the reason my family fell apart. I'm one of them, he said quietly. But not the way you think. There was something in his tone, not defensive. Not guilty. Just tired. You knew my mom? I asked. He nodded. Before she was your mom. When she was just herself. I hesitated. The wind was picking up. I was cold, tired, and the idea of walking another 10 miles felt impossible. Against every ounce of logic, I found myself opening the door and sliding into the passenger seat. You get one ride, I said. Don't make it weird. He chuckled. I'll do my best. We drove in silence for a while. I studied him from the corner of my eye. He didn't look like a homewrecker. He looked like someone who hadn't been home in a long time. How did you know her? I asked finally. She and I were, he stopped. We were close. Before she met your dad. Then for a while after. Too close. I stared at the windshield. Did she love you? He didn't answer right away. That's the wrong question. What's the right one? Did I love her? Yes. Did I leave so she could have the life she thought she needed? Also yes. We turned onto a quiet road lined with trees. Why are you back? I asked. He shrugged. I didn't know I was. But when I saw you, it felt like the past pulled up a chair. I looked at him. Really looked. Do you regret it? He smiled faintly. I regret hurting people. But I don't regret feeling something real. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full. He pulled up to a small cabin. Lights off. Simple. Honest. I stay here sometimes, he said. If you want, I'll drop you wherever. Or you can come in. Sit. Get warm. I didn't move. You don't even know me, I said. He looked at me like I'd said something absurd. Kid, he said, I've known the shape of your face since long before you were born. And somehow I believed him. I followed him inside. And just like that, the past wasn't behind me anymore. It was sitting across from me, pouring tea. And I wasn't sure I wanted to run from it. His cabin smelled like cedar and old coffee. There was something peaceful about it. Worn bookshelves, a lamp that gave off warm yellow light, and a kettle that hissed softly from the stove. I stood by the door, arms crossed, not quite sure whether to sit or bolt. Tea, he asked. I'm not here for a bedtime story. Mark chuckled, not unkindly. Fair enough. He poured anyway. 2 mugs. No questions. I know you're angry, he said finally, handing me one.
I'm not angry, Elite.
I'm exhausted. He sat across from me. You have every right to be both. I blew on the tea, but didn't drink. My dad calls you a mistake. He didn't flinch. He's not wrong. I made some. Like what? Loving my mom? Or not leaving fast enough? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Like falling in love with someone who was already halfway out the door. Like staying when I should have run. Like thinking love was enough to fix anything. That's not a mistake. That's being human. He looked at me closely. And what's your mistake? I laughed dryly, thinking I could talk to my dad like I had a brain of my own.
Mark sighed. He's proud of you, you know.
He just doesn't know how to say it without turning it into a lecture. You don't know him anymore. I knew him before the bitterness. That man was my brother in everything but blood. We built your parents' porch together. We fished every weekend. We cried the night you were born. That silenced me. I held you, he added, voice low. You were red and tiny and screamed like you had something to prove. I told your mom you'd grow up to burn the world down if it got in your way. Guess I'm halfway there, I muttered. We both smiled. The clock ticked on the wall. Why are you still here? I asked. Why not leave town again? I didn't mean to come back. But when I saw you, I knew I couldn't just drive past. I searched his face. Why? Because I see her in you. But I also see something she never had, the fight and the freedom to use it. I looked away. Don't romanticize me. I'm not. I'm just telling you why I stopped the truck. I drank the tea. It was too strong, too hot, and exactly what I needed. What happens if my dad finds out I'm here? Mark hesitated. He'll explode. Maybe worse. But that's not on you. He'll think I'm choosing sides. He nodded. Maybe. But sometimes choosing yourself looks like betrayal to people who never learned how. Silence again. Then, quietly, I said, I should go. Mark stood. Want a ride? I shook my head.
No.
I think I want to walk a bit. He opened the door for me, the night air spilling in. As I stepped out, he said softly, You're not her. And I don't expect you to be. But I'm glad you stopped. I paused at the edge of the porch. I'm glad you did too. And then I walked into the dark, my head full of questions, and my chest too full of something I didn't want to name just yet. But I didn't feel afraid. Not anymore. Because for the first time in a long while, someone had looked at me and seen me, not as my parents' kid, but as me. And I wasn't ready to let that go. I didn't plan to go back. But 2 days later, I found myself standing at his porch again, arms crossed, pretending I'd just been passing by. The lie didn't even work on me. Mark opened the door before I knocked. I was hoping that was your car. I don't drive. He smiled. Then I guess I was hoping that was your silence. I stepped inside without asking. The cabin smelled the same. Cedar and coffee. Like someone had actually lived there, not just existed. He didn't ask why I came. He just handed me tea again and sat across from me like he'd been waiting. I can't stop thinking about that night, I said. Neither can I. I don't mean the past. I mean this.
You. Me.
He looked down. I know. I shouldn't be here, I said quietly. Probably not. And yet, you're here. I sighed, sinking into the same worn armchair. Do you ever feel like the one thing you were told to avoid is the only thing that makes you feel real? All the time. We sat in silence. That soft kind of silence that isn't uncomfortable, it just holds space. Finally, I asked, what happened between you and my mom? The real version. Not the family legend. He rubbed his thumb along the rim of his cup. We loved each other. That's the simplest truth. And the most complicated one. Did she ever love my dad? I think so. In her way. But he was safety. I wasn't. And now you're what?
Older.
Tired. Regretful. Still not safe. I laughed softly. You don't scare me, Mark. His eyes flicked to mine. That's what scares me. I stood up, started pacing. This isn't normal. You're him. The guy I wasn't supposed to even mention. The ghost that haunted every fight my parents ever had. And you're her daughter, he said. The one I wasn't supposed to ever meet again. So, why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? He stood too slowly. Because maybe the past has a way of pulling back what it lost. Or maybe we're just too broken to care about rules anymore. I took a step closer. I'm not her, Mark. I know. And I'm not here to fix you. I know that too. I reached up, brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. You matter, I whispered. More than I want you to. He closed his eyes. And if I asked you to kiss me right now? I asked. He opened them. I'd tell you I've wanted to since the first time you looked at me like I wasn't a mistake. I moved closer. So kiss me.
He did.
And it wasn't wrong.
It was raw.
Gentle. Like truth. Like sorrow. Like two people who knew exactly how much they had to lose. When we pulled apart, he didn't say anything. Neither did I. Because the words weren't ready yet. But the feeling? It had already arrived. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't see him. And then I found myself sitting in the coffee shop across from campus, staring at my untouched drink, replaying that kiss over and over like it was a scene from a film I was both the star of and too afraid to watch. My phone buzzed. Mark, are you okay? Me no. Yes. I don't know. Mark, me neither. I stared at those two words like they were a lifeline. I hated how much comfort I took from them. I hated even more how much I wanted to see him again. So I did. When I arrived at the cabin that evening, he didn't look surprised. You keep doing that, I said as I stepped inside. Doing what? Looking at me like you're afraid I'm going to vanish. Maybe I am, he said quietly. Or maybe I'm afraid I won't be able to let you go. We sat across from each other.
Close.
But not touching. This can't happen, I said. I know. It's wrong. I know. But I don't want it to stop. Me neither. I looked at him, really looked. The lines around his mouth. The worry in his eyes. The way he folded his hands like he was trying not to reach for me. I thought you ruined my parents' marriage, I said suddenly. I did, he answered without hesitation. Not by sleeping with her. Not even by loving her. But by reminding her she had a choice. And now I'm making one too. Yes, he said. You are. I stood, walked to the window. The woods outside were dark and still. My dad would kill you if he knew. I'm aware. I turned to face him. But I'm not here because of my dad. Or my mom. Or anything they did or didn't do. I know. I'm here because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to pretend. I don't have to shrink myself or play dumb or apologize for wanting something real. He got up slowly, came to stand in front of me. I haven't felt like this in years, he said. Maybe ever. I reached for his hand. I don't care what it's supposed to be, I whispered. It is. He pulled me into him, slow, careful, like touching something sacred. And I let myself fall forward into his chest, breathing in that scent I was starting to memorize. Later, when we lay on the couch in the quiet hum of the night, he spoke again. What are we doing? I don't know, I said. But for once, I don't want to run from it. He kissed my forehead. And I believed him when he whispered, then let's not. I didn't go to Mark's the next night. Instead, I went home. My mother was in the kitchen, slicing apples like the world hadn't shifted beneath my feet. She looked up when I walked in, and something in her eyes flickered. Recognition.
Worry.
Maybe even guilt.
Hey, I said.
She smiled softly.
Hi, sweetheart.
Everything okay? No, I said honestly. Can we talk? She set the knife down. Is this about school?
No.
It's about Mark. The color drained from her face. I saw him. I continued. More than once. She sat down slowly. Does your father know?
No.
But I don't care what he thinks. I care what you think.
Because he said something to me.
A lot of things, actually. And now I need to know if they're true.
She didn't ask what he said.
She already knew. She stared at the table for a long moment. Then quietly. He was my first love. I didn't move. I was 18, she said. He was 26. We met at the lake house my parents rented that summer. I thought he was the whole world. Maybe he was. But time passes. Life gets in the way. And sometimes love isn't enough to build a life on. I swallowed. You married Dad instead. I thought it was the right choice. The safe one. Mark left before I could decide. And I stayed because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. Did you ever stop loving him? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. But why didn't you ever talk about him? You made him sound like a scandal, not a person. Because your father made it that way. And I let him. Because I was afraid you'd see what I gave up and resent me for it. I was silent. And now? I asked. She looked up at me. Now I hope you don't make the same mistake. It hit me harder than I expected. Not her past, but her honesty. I think I already crossed that line, I whispered. She didn't look shocked. Then ask yourself one thing. Are you choosing him because he feels like freedom, or because you think love is supposed to hurt? I didn't answer. But later that night, I found myself back at Mark's cabin, standing on the porch with shaking hands. He opened the door and saw something in my face. You talked to her, he said. I nodded. And she said you were her first love. He let out a slow breath. She was mine too. I'm not her, I said. I know. I'm not trying to rewrite your past. He stepped forward. You're not. You're rewriting mine. And then I kissed him again, fully, completely, without fear this time. Because for once, I wasn't stepping into someone else's story. I was writing my own. And he was right there with me. The next morning, I woke in his bed. The world outside was still, the woods bathed in pale gold light. I could hear the kettle starting to hiss in the kitchen. Mark had let me sleep. When I walked in, barefoot and quiet, he was reading an old paperback at the table, glasses perched low on his nose. You always wake up this early? I asked. He looked up with that smile that never quite reached his eyes unless I was the one standing there. Only when someone worth waking up for is sleeping in my house. I blushed, grabbed a mug, poured the tea he'd already made. Don't get poetic on me, I teased. It's too early. He grinned. You brought poetry into this the second you kissed me. I sat across from him. There were 1,000 things we should have said, 1,000 more we were both probably still afraid of.
But instead, I said.
My mom, she said something. She said I should ask myself whether I'm choosing you because you feel like freedom or because I think love is supposed to hurt. His smile faded. And what did you decide? I looked at him for a long time. I think I've spent my whole life watching people choose the safest version of love. And it made them small and tired and alone, even when they were together. He said nothing. You don't feel safe to me, Mark. You feel real. He reached across the table, took my hand. And you don't feel like a second chance. You feel like a beginning. That was when we heard the knock on the door. One sharp. Too loud. My stomach dropped. Mark stood slowly. Stay here. But I followed him. It was my father. He looked older than I remembered. And angrier. I figured you'd be here, he said. Then to Mark, open your mouth and I'll put you through that wall. Dad.
No.
You don't talk. You don't look at me like I'm the villain here. I trusted you, he growled at Mark. I trusted you with everything. And now you're what, screwing my daughter? Mark didn't answer. He stood firm, jaw clenched. I'm not a child, I said quietly. You don't get to decide who I love. This isn't love, Dad snapped. It's delusion. It's betrayal. You think this won't ruin you both. Mark stepped forward then, not angry, calm. I never planned this, he said. But I won't apologize for what it's become.
You should, Dad said.
You should both be ashamed. I looked at my father, the man who taught me to fear my own voice, and I finally said what I never dared to. I don't care who he was to you. I know who he is to me. Silence fell. Cold. Final. My father shook his head and walked away. Mark turned to me. Are you sure? He asked. I nodded. I was never more sure of anything. He pulled me into his arms, held me like he didn't believe this was real. And maybe part of me still didn't either. But I knew this much. Sometimes love isn't about the past. It's about the choice you make in the moment to stop running.
And stay.
And I did. With him.